We are live. It's raining in Sacramento right now, so I'm a little thrown off. I apologize for that. This is the Sprint Ride Option podcast, the only 49ers podcast to feature exclusively Andrew Pasquini and Jason Aponte, part of the Blue Wire Hustle Network. Jason Aponte, how are you doing on this? Today's Friday. How are you doing on this Friday?
I'm great. I woke up this morning and I was like, you know what? Today I'm going to have a great day. And I've been having a great day. It's been amazing. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, that's good to hear. You know, I'm really happy to have you having. Oh my goodness, I'm really happy to hear you're having a good day. I too am having a good day. It's the weekend, and with the weekend means the 49ers have a football game on a Sunday for the first time in 2 weeks now because they played Sunday. For some reason, I thought they had the bye week before the Monday night game. That was wrong, so I didn't know exactly where I was going with that. We got to it. That's all that matters. Let me say another confusing sentence. All right, you ready for this? This is the like hype for this game. This is a football game that features two football teams, only one of which is named the football team. The other one is billed to be playing in San Francisco, actually plays in Santa Clara, but currently plays in Arizona. Let's just be really confusing about it, huh?
Yeah, I mean I'm totally followed all of that. I've got it completely nailed.
Yeah, so the 49ers play the Washington football team for the first time in franchise history. Obviously, we know what the football team was before that. We don't need to say because that's not their team name anymore. This is the second year in a row now the 49ers have faced off against the football team. Last year, actually, I mean, I remember the game they played last year in Washington very well. It was the first of two just stormy games. It has the very famous one, probably top two celebration moment of Nick Bosa's career, because obviously number one is the flag against Baker Mayfield, him getting the game-winning sack. Oh, I forget who was the quarterback for Washington last year in that game.
It was Case Keenum.
Was it? Oh my goodness, it was Case Keenum. It's sacking Case Keenum, slip and sliding, sealing the game. Niners won that 9-0, and probably one of the most dominating 9-0 games you'll find. Washington really had no chance the whole game. The 49ers, it was storming. You chalk up a lot of that to how poor they looked last year in the storm. But throw all that out because the two teams are vastly different now. Last year at this time, it was Jay Gruden as the head coach of the Washington football team. This year, it is, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera, the head coach of the Washington football team. Case Keenum was the quarterback last year. This year, it is Alex Smith, which we'll get into that, obviously. Running back situation is different for Washington as well. Last year, they were running Adrian Peterson. This year, it's going to be a combination of Peyton Barber and J.D. McKissick because Antonio Gibson's out. Something else we will talk about. I feel like we talked about this game like a month ago as a game like kind of, how we look ahead in the schedule when we talk about the 49ers, and we kind of looked at it as a game that on paper looks like it should be a win, but it's a game that scares the living hell out of me because this Washington football team is a good team that is maybe 2 years short, maybe I don't want to say real quarterback, but an explosive quarterback away from actually making noise. Their defense vastly improved. I'm sure we'll talk about that. I guess we'll start there. How are you feeling going into this game, Jason Aponte?
I mean, I have just as much hesitation towards what you're saying. Absolutely. I'm you look at it on paper, everything schematically, right? It seems like a slam dunk, but this one is going to be tricky. This one's going to be really ugly. I think it's not going to be, very, very much offense. It's very much going to be the defenses. And part of that is both the quarterback play and everything else. But, I think this week, the hardest part that I've had is I'm trying to figure out whose revenge game is it. And maybe we should settle that right now. So is it Alex Smith's, Trent Williams, Jordan Reed's, or I know there's someone else.
You're leaving a big name off.
I am Washington. So it's Jordan Reed, it's Trent Williams, it's Kyle Shanahan.
There you go. That's the name I was looking for. Yeah. So there's, you could even argue this is a Chase Young revenge game.
How so?
Because one of the things because the draft, everybody knew Chase Young was going to Washington, and nobody really knew the status of Trent Williams. And I was reading the Washington Football Team Athletic, and they were talking about, up to the draft, like Chase Young in practice against Trent Williams. It's really going to be him learning against Trent Williams. He gets drafted. He's teammates with Trent Williams for all of 2 days, doesn't get a chance. So that this could also be a Chase Young revenge against Trent Williams and go out to show the world what he has against maybe the top left tackle in the NFL. So that Chase Young, I would say, a revenge game. I mean, you also have you're missing the story of when this game came on the schedule of Chase Young versus Nick Bosa, back-to-back years, number 2 pick, both out of Ohio State, both top-tier edge rushers. Is this Alex Smith's first game against the? I meant to look that up. I don't think this is his first game against the 49ers. He had one as a Chief, right?
Yes, he did with Kansas City, and and we joke, right? Like we joke about Alex Smith's revenge game, but I think that Alex holds no ill will towards the team. I was just asked this on a show previously, so it's like fresh in my mind. But the 49ers did him right. They didn't send him like to some horrible barren wasteland of football. Like they sent him to Andy Reid in Kansas City. I think he understands that. Whatever happened with the way that he lost his job here, I think that the fans, for the most part, you're always going to have those people that are going to say whatever they're going to say. But for the most part, remember Alex fondly, and remember, I think that's another thing that I like about this week is that we get to reflect on Alex's time here. And, when you really think about his journey, right, from all those coordinators, all those coaches, being picked over Aaron Rodgers and everything, it's like, we still remember him fondly. I do, at least. I root for the guy just any week but this week, right? But yeah, I don't think he has a revenge game. If anybody's upset with anybody, it's Kyle. Yeah. It's Jordan Reed. They're upset. Trent Williams. We had this debate in text, but I want to ask you again, and maybe I'll ask you on here. How exactly does an offensive lineman get revenge? Like
pancakes, pancakes on pancakes on pancakes. I mean, I guess the simple answer to that would be just don't allow a pressure, don't allow a quarterback hit,
right?
Things like that. I would probably say that the biggest one is Kyle Shanahan. Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator there from 2010 to 2013. He had RG3. Him and Mike Shanahan got fired at the same time. So it's not just like he used to coach there, but he got ousted with his dad. So I think it's a little bit of a personal thing as well. So I want to say that Archer Roy makes a good point. Terry McLaurin could be a revenge game. Shanahan went Debo over McLaurin, and McLaurin's been very, very good since he's come into the league. So there's a lot of weird intersections between the 49ers and the Washington Football Team.
I got one more.
You got one more?
Yeah, I do. So the game that you were referring to last year, the Rain Bowl,
yes.
I remember stronger than most 49er fans because I was there.
Oh, you were.
It was miserable because I live closer to Washington. It was miserable. That's the worst football game I've ever been to in my life. Also the cheapest. I bought field level seats for $6. That's how bad they were. But I don't know if you remember at the end of that game because I remember you bringing up Nick Bosa, sliding and everything, and I don't know if you remember. Oh, wow. Art was there, too. So, yeah, there you go. He knows how miserable it was. Like, I don't think that the TV showed how bad it rained. Like, it was way worse. But at the end of the game, after Nick Bosa slides, the Washington announces, like, and the 49ers go sliding. And, you know what? That's a disgrace,
I remember that.
This team's going to remember this. Well, look at how that lines up, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this... It's not technically a must win for the 49ers because they can't afford to lose one more. This is I'm going to call it a need to win game. You need to win it. And Archinoy made a good point earlier of why should this be a win? What gives us the confidence that our O-line will be able to block? Because you got to remember.
I don't have any confidence in that.
Yeah, I don't have any confidence in that either. But I think at the start of the season, we had this game circled of, well, this is the Washington Football Team. This should be a win. And I still think a lot of people, like I know a lot of people probably don't watch the Washington Football Team. Like, let's be honest. They're in the NFC East. Relatively boring team on paper. Not much to them. What are they? They're 5-7 now, I believe, with in the NFC East.
Yeah,
same as the 49ers. This is a team that's better than what I think their record shows. I think going Kyle Allen to start the season really hurt this team.
I think they had to though.
They
started with Haskins actually.
They started with Haskins, then they went to Kyle Allen, and I think Alex Smith was probably the right choice the whole time. And what's I think what didn't help them either is like we've talked about the lack of a preseason, the lack of OTAs for like a player like Javon Kinlaw, right? We talk about him. Ron Rivera had to go into the season with a brand new team without OTAs, without preseason, without all that stuff. And so I think they started slow because of it. And I think they're a better team than what the record shows. I mean, they've had some really impressive wins. I know obviously we're going to say what we want about the Cowboys, but I'm a firm believer in a league. Anytime you win 41-16 in any kind of game is that's impressive. They beat the Eagles week 1 before we really realized the Eagles weren't good. And then obviously their biggest win, the win that makes me the most nervous, they defeated the last undefeated team. Whatever your opinion is on the Steelers, I'm in the boat of they're probably more overrated than what they actually are. The Washington football team goes into Pittsburgh on a Monday night. Game gets rescheduled. They have to make adjustments for it. They go in and beat the Steelers. So that I guess that's my reasoning of why I think that, looking at it on paper, this should be a win. But obviously, when you dive in deeper, this isn't going to be an easy game for the 49ers.
No, it's not. And then I think that's a perfect place for you to start, when it comes to, previewing this game, if you want to run down some stats and just, I think that people understand that this defense is stingy, but I don't think they get how stingy and how good they are. And when you run down the stats, so you got some of those. Yeah.
Can I tell you how stingy this defense is actually?
For sure.
Their offense is worse than the Niners. Just to give you an idea, the Niners average 366 yards per game. The Washington football team averages 325. So that's not surprising because of who the quarterback is, right? We know Niner fans know the best who this quarterback is and what he does. The Niners might have a better offense than them at this point. Who knows? That's beyond the point.
They do statistically,
Statistically speaking, they have a better offense. Whether or not that's going to show on Sunday, I don't know, because you got to remember the Niners have had a few games with Garoppolo and Kittle, and they've lost a lot of players.
Yep.
The defense is where it gets very hairy. If you thought the Niners defense was good, 11th in the league in pass yards allowed per game, 9th in the league in rush yards allowed per game. The Washington football team allows 204 yards passing per game. That's 3rd best in the league.
Right, and that's after the Pittsburgh game, because going into that game they were the 2nd best defense, 194.6.
And what can you do against the Steelers? Right, the Steelers are a good offense. The rush yards per game, they're 10th in the league. They only allow 107 yards per game, which is actually what the Niners average. The Niners average 110 rush yards per game on offense,
and that's not good for us.
That's not great for us. No, not at all. They also force a lot of turnovers. They have 11 interceptions, which is 9th in the league. And the thing that scares me the most, 35 sacks. That's 5th most in the NFL. They have 8 players with at least 2 sacks. They have 4 with at least 4.5 sacks. Montez Sweat leads them. I think he has 8.5. Ryan Kerrigan, who I guess a little bit of a revenge game for him because there was some trade rumors that Niners might be interested in him.
Revenge game for everybody.
My handwriting is horrible, so I have to find this guy. Tim Settle, he has 5 sacks, and then Chase Young, he bottoms out at 4.5. This team can create pressure, and that's scary because the Niners' offensive line hasn't been great, and Nick Mullins isn't exactly what I would define as a mobile quarterback. So I guess that's where we will start with the official preview breakdown of this game.
Right.
How do the 49ers stop the pass rush? That's really what it is.
I mean, to compound on your stats too, real quick before we get into that, there's some other ones that really can highlight this defense and how good they are. Their 9th and 3rd down conversion rate allowed at 37.9%. This is going into Monday Night Football. 2nd in red scoring rate, which I believe went up to 1st because they didn't allow some points, I think, on some red zone drives. And they only allow 17 first downs. And they got the late game interception against Pittsburgh, man. Their They're 8th in points allowed and 4th in yards allowed. Like, those are telling stats right there. Yes, this Pittsburgh game really highlighted some things for me, and it makes me nervous because it's true what you say about getting pressure. The problem is that the Steelers, while they've had injuries on their line, they really had issues with just 4 rushing. That's scary, Andrew. If they're rushing 4 and that pocket was collapsing every time on Ben Roethlisberger, and they played man everywhere else, at least in this Pittsburgh game. They definitely played man everywhere on the sides, and we'll talk a little bit more about who their corners are and what their numbers are and stuff like that. But I am afraid that a team that can generate pressure with 4 is going to give a right side that is having issues, specifically one Mike McGlinchey. Tom Compton's not playing in this game because he has a concussion. On the injury report, he's out for Sunday. So we're going to see Colton McKivitz on the right side.
Okay.
We will see Brunskill as center again, but you have to be concerned with that right side. Why wouldn't you, as Jack Del Rio, say, I am putting Chase Young on Mike McGlinchey. I am putting Montez Sweat on Mike McGlinchey. I'm going to make sure I get Ryan Kerrigan over there on him. That is the part that scares the heck out of me because the 49ers need time, off of play action, and they need time for Nick Mullins. He just can't get hit. I get nervous.
Yeah, and I talked about, Nick Mullins on Monday night against the Bills, how tough he played, how physical he was. He's going to have to do that again, and he probably can't make mistakes while doing it. So he made a couple mistakes versus the Bills. A couple of them I don't really, as I said, like the interception that ended the game, the Tre'Davious White interception, that is a that's a throw you got to make. You got to force it. You're down a touchdown. Yeah, that's fine. Like if that's a first quarter throw, I have an issue with it, right? That is not a first quarter throw. That is you're down 2 touchdowns trying to make something happen all the time. 10 out of 10 times do it, right? So Mullins is going to have to be mistake free. He's going to have to play tough. I mean, that's really the only, for me, I'll say it right now, barring any surprise, if the Niners win this game, Nick Mullins is going to be my number 1 star. Because he's going to have a good game.
Right.
He's going to have a good game.
Well, he's going to have a relatively clean game, right? I think Nick is going to give you one pick per game. I think you're going to have to get. It's when he gets into those 2 and 3s that things are going to get hairy. And if he's forced to drop back, that's when all the issues are going to happen. So, I mean, while I don't really foresee in my range of outcomes the Washington football team on offense running away with a lead, you still don't want to get Nick Mullins into mode of drop back passing. Everything has to be based off of play action, and they have to be running the ball well. Like, Mostert isn't 100%. We heard that today that he said that he's still not 100%. That could explain some things. So I expect Jeff Williams actually to have a really big game in this game, right? He was used heavily right off the bat last week. So this is going to be one of his games as well. You can run the ball against, Washington better than you can probably throw it at this point. But you have to remember the Steelers can't run the ball on anybody. So if you go and you look back and you look at those stats and you allow them to say, hey, they're good on run defense. Yes, they're good on run defense, but they're not that good. Throw into the fact that even when James Conner was there, Pittsburgh couldn't run it. He was out. Benny Snell was there. Anthony McFarland was playing. So, that one I kind of threw out. But if you notice, Ben Roethlisberger throws 49-50 attempts every single game. It doesn't really matter. Like, he's always up there. So, but what Washington was doing was they were just running man everywhere with Kendall Fuller and Ronald Darby, and they weren't afraid. Rushing forward, running man, and just saying whatever, come beat us. And that's the part, that's the part that is going to be where the 49ers really have to attack, is they have to be able to win those underneath routes. Like, Debo has to get that slant underneath in front of them and get those yak yards. We all know Brandon Ayuk. It doesn't matter which of those guys, no matter how good of a season they're having, Brandon Ayuk's going to be open. So this game, yes, I mean, we say it every week, it's going to fall on Nick, but I think that the 49ers are going to have a good chance at exploiting these cornerbacks on the outside, provided that everything else falls in line for Nick.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jeff Wilson. I have a Jeff Wilson take I've kind of been sitting on. Okay. And I don't know if necessarily this is my take because I don't think we've seen enough of him, but I claim this take if I end up being right.
Okay.
Behind Derrick Henry, I think Jeff Wilson is the second running back I would least like to try and tackle on the open field.
Really?
He runs so physical, so hard. And Derrick Henry's just a different species because he's 9 feet tall, 345 pounds of just pure muscle. Jeff Wilson is just sneaky that he will just run through you.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see him get more carries, and I'm gonna sit on. That's not an official take. I'm sitting on that take. Sitting on that take, and we're gonna kind of find out where that goes. In terms of Ayuk and Debo, Shanahan can't have another game where Debo doesn't get a reception till the third quarter. He needs to figure out ways to get him going early, because I felt like the offense moved better when he was getting involved. I mean, this the thing that makes me the most sad about this is like, you close your eyes and you picture what the 49ers offense could be with Mostert healthy and Kittle healthy and Ayuk healthy and Debo healthy. And I don't care. I'll even say Garoppolo healthy, because we know what Garoppolo can be when he's healthy. And just to see what this offense could be and not having it, it's so hard. It's so rough as a Niner fan sometimes. But yeah, I really do think that Debo needs to get involved early. I think I just want them to open up with a confident passing game. Like second play of the game, just take a deep shot, see what happens. Why not? What's the worst second? Something like that.
But that probably won't happen because of how Kyle scripts that first drive. Have you noticed?
I know.
It gets me upset, right? That first drive is the easiest one to script, but then once you get away from that initial drive, it almost feels like there's like almost no plan. Didn't mean to do all that, and put that out in the air, but it's like once you get away from that first drive, and you ever notice the two best drives usually in games are the one that's first out of the gate for the 49ers and then the one first out of the half?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. It's weird how that, and maybe even two, like, just take like a token deep shot to start the game, just so then like a defense can just be like, oh, they did that? Like what?
They put one on film. They put one on film last week. Maybe that's something that's in the back of their mind too.
I'm just talking early in a game. I think like just try it, see what happens. Even if it's just a design, just like chuck it 20 yards over the receiver's head, just to put it in the back of their mind of like, oh, they're trying to go a little vertical on us. Okay. Like something like that. I don't know. That's a complaint that's not even a Washington football team specific complaint.
No, but that would be good. You're right.
Something like that. Anyways, the big news for the Washington football team, Antonio Gibson, 141 carries, 659 total yards, 11 touchdowns, which is tied for third in the NFL.
Yep.
In terms of rushing, he's out.
Yep.
So the touchdown number is obviously high, but he has less rushing yards than Kyler Murray this year.
He does.
I'm
sorry.
He can get in the end zone, but he averages about 4.5 yards per carry, which is pretty good. I think it's something that just, I don't know, man. I feel like 141 carries, because I mean we're 11 games into it, so that's about 14 carries per game, or we're 12 games into it.
And those numbers are skewed because they haven't utilized Gibson and when they get into game script issues, like when the game is out of hand and they have to like catch up, Gibson's not on the field. McKissick is, because I'm passing down. So like sometimes Washington was getting boat raced earlier in the year and he wasn't like Gibson is their, it's him and McLaurin that are their most dynamic players, right? Like Gibson was a wide receiver, converted running back. It's so funny that you hear Ron Rivera say before the year, he's our version of CMC. And, low key, they don't use him that way, but he can be. I think I see it on the film exactly what they're talking about. Like, not trying to compare him to CMC. I'm just saying similar skill sets in that way, that they're so involved in the passing game. Unfortunately, they never really used him that way. That's all J.D. McKissick's role. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and like actually, you led in exactly what I was going to say. So this is Peyton Barber and J.D. McKissick. They're going to be the two running backs on the team. Peyton Barber, 73 carries, 196 yards, 2.7 yards per carry. That's nothing that's going to scare you.
No.
J.D. McKissick, a little better, 55 carries, 231 rushing yards. That's 4.2 yards per carry. He's not used as much in the run game. However, where J.D. McKissick will kill you is the pass game. He's been targeted 78 times. That is second on the Washington football team.
Yeah.
56 receptions. That is second on the Washington football team.
Yep.
And his 408 receiving yards is third behind only McLaurin and Lance Thomas.
Yeah.
So while Antonio Gibson's out, this just puts J.D. McKissick on the field more, and it's going to give the Niners defense a little more to worry about because Gibson's not used as heavily in the pass game.
Right. That's the thing, right? So, that's the thing, right, with these specialists, right? Because it's almost like it kind of tips your hand to where you're going. If McKissick's on the field, then you kind of know it's a pass. If Peyton Barber's there, you're not really going to see him get the ball or anything like that. The issue is that the Redskins are using them both. Like, there's formations where they just leave Barber in the backfield. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeesh. The Washington football team. Good God, that's bad. All right. Well, I got one. So the Washington football team uses both of them, where they'll split, Peyton Barber, in the backfield. And J.D. McKissick is a converted wide receiver, so he can run those sort of routes, right? So, like, the reason that you mentioned the targets, and I think it's so funny, is, like, he had one game where he got 15 targets against the Detroit Lions. Last week, he got 10 targets, caught 10 passes for 70 yards. That's 7 a clip. He's the ultimate check down guy. Like, he's the guy that he's just, Alex Smith is going to pre-diagnose everything pre-snap, and then he's never going to make the mistake. It's going to be very rare that you're going to see Alex Smith throw something where you're just like, what did he see there? What you'll say is, why did he check that down? But it's never going to lead to an interception or anything like that. That's how safe he plays.
Yep, and Niner fans know exactly.
We know all very well. Exactly. I'm not breaking
very well. We don't really need to do a deep dive on Alex Smith.
I don't need to break that down any further or even act like that was any new information, honestly.
No. But like just Alex. He's just annoyingly good because you don't expect him to be great. And then every so often he'll take a deep shot. And when I say deep shot, I mean an in route that's like 13 yards down the field. No,
you're right though. No, you're right though. So that's a good point. You're absolutely right. And you're closer to the truth than you think. So that Pittsburgh game, it's so funny, right? You can look at the next gen stats and for any of you guys that have Game Pass, the next gen stats and the passing chart is all there for you. All you have to do is click the stats and then it'll give you a breakdown and it tells you about the stat. Obviously, when you notice where the throws are going, there's 3 quadrants where Alex Smith is lighting it up. Do you want to guess, Andrew? Right in front of the line of scrimmage.
just left in front of the scrimmage, middle in front of the line of scrimmage, and right to the line of scrimmage.
And the flat, correct. So, those are the 3 that are lit up with like 9, 8, and 7 targets, right, in those areas. But he did take, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 6 or 7 shots past 30 yards. And he hit one, which was an above average throw to the left for, I think it was like 50 yards, something like that. And he hit another to the right. So don't get it messed up. While we joke around about all those things, if you do make a mistake and Alex Smith feels like he can get that ball, like the guy's got to be really open. That's what I noticed. He's not going to throw it into a window where there's a defender closing in or anything like that. But against Pittsburgh, who, they have some pretty good, secondary players, he took some shots. He missed some, but he hit 2 big ones. And that's the thing. Like that's what's funny about it. It's just so funny. Like, we joke about the check down thing, but to see 9, 8, and 7 in those same areas, it's still kind of like shocking to see and like funny.
So Alex Smith against Pittsburgh behind the line of scrimmage went 8 for 8 for 51 yards. From 0 to 10 yards, he went 11, 20, 20 or 19 for 28. I can't do that yardage math that quick. From 10 to 20 yards, he went 2 for 3 for 31 yards and a touchdown. And then 30 yards, he took 5 attempts. He hit 2 for 59 yards. And what should scare 49er fans a little bit is we just saw a game. And it's not to the extent because I don't think the Bills, they did. The Bills really picked apart that 0 to 10 yard range and just used it to walk down the field. And then Josh Allen would find something open deep. Not to the extent of what Alex Smith is, but expect to see that. Alex Smith isn't Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But expect to see that type of offense from them. I think they're going to try and pick the little parts. And then once they realize they have a deep shot, they're going to take it. So expect that. I don't know if they'll have the success the Bills had because you're talking about a Bills team that has Devin Singletary, that has Stephon Diggs, that has Dustin. I believe it's Dustin Knox. That sounds wrong, but I think Dawson Knox and Cole Beasley. Alex Smith is out there with Lance Thomas, J.D. McKissick, and Terry McLaurin. That's pretty much who he's going to target. So we're going to see what Alex Smith can do against this Niners offense, but expect to see pretty much the same idea the Bills had that the Washington football team is going to try and do. So we'll see how that happens, see how it works.
Right. I think I think you're onto something right there, and I think that's
Thank
kind
you.
of where the defensive game plan is. Like, and so here's the thing, right? The Bills had two things that the Redskins. Oh God, the Washington
You did
football
it
team.
again.
I know that the Washington football team doesn't have, right?
At
They have
this
a
point, I'm going to
quarterback.
have to put an explicit filter on this
Yeah,
podcast.
you might just bleep it out when you do the editing. So Josh Allen clearly has an arm, right? We don't have to talk about Alex Smith.
No.
That's one thing they don't have. Okay. And then they have receivers that threaten you vertically, with Stephon Diggs and and Gabriel Davis. And, if John Brown was there, they would have all that, right? Okay. But I really feel like this game is going to be more conducive to the whole cover 3, keep it in front of you type deal, because their receivers don't threaten as much as the Bills. They don't have a guy who's going to take as many chances or is as mobile. So I think they're going to run a ton of cover 3. This is the part that is kind of scary, right? Like, this cover 3 thing didn't work last week. Probably going to work this week. As far as the offense, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Washington football team scored 17 points, the most. And then everybody's going to say, oh, look at the scheme and blah, blah, blah. You just understand, like, matchups are different. Quarterbacks are different. Wide receivers are different.
Yeah.
This can work against Alex Smith. It can. There's no threat of running. You get to play at home the whole time, pretty much.
Home.
Yeah, I know. Home.
Before we jump off Alex Smith, just because he is who he is.
Sure.
What's your favorite Alex Smith memory? I think there's a pretty obvious one, so I want to rule that one out. I think everybody's going to say the run against the Saints in that Saints game.
Mm-hmm.
What's your personal favorite one? Because I have one that's a little different, but
I do too, actually. And it's weird because this game wouldn't be attributed to him really doing the or leading the charge. But I think it was, obviously everybody's going to run to the Saints one. That's not the one that I'm thinking of clearly. I'm talking about, if you remember, I think it was 2011. Was it the first year Harbaugh was there, right?
Yeah,
we didn't really know what the 49ers were. And then they go to Philadelphia, right? In the heart of hearts of pretty much any 49er fan at that point, right? Michael Vick, Shady McCoy, all those guys are over there. And we don't really know about this team, right? It's still too early to tell. Right. Yeah. Wow. That wasn't the Dream Team year.
Yeah,
with Vincent. It was? Okay. So it was
the Dream Team year that they went like 7-9.
Yeah. Okay. So, but the 49ers go in there and everybody remembers Justin Smith's, play at the end of the game with the hustle. But I feel like that game and him, leading the way in that game and being the quarterback for that game, it signified a change in culture. And I think this team realized we are good. Even they almost didn't feel it. And I think that Harbaugh has said that. I'm sure that's out there, that someone on that roster has said that was the game that we really started to believe. But that was the game that I started to believe that year. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, this is a huge win on the road on the East Coast. That wasn't something that the 49ers were doing until John Harbaugh got there. So, like, that was, that was a sign of things.
Jim Harbaugh.
I'm horrible today. Jim Harbaugh was doing but yeah, I feel like, that was the time where things changed in the way that we perceive that team and Alex Smith, man.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mine's a little different, just because I have a little personal tie to it. Year is 2005. Mike Nolan's the head coach of the 49ers. Not a great time.
That suit.
My first and only professional football game I've ever been to.
What, the one where he wore a suit?
No.
Oh.
The first ever football game I've been to, 49er game, because I've been to college games. I've been to a San Francisco Demons game. My only 49ers game I've been to, 2005 week. Oh, I'm wrong year. 2004. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Whatever Alex Smith's rookie year was, I get it mixed up. Maybe I don't know what year. I don't know what year. That's it. That's not important
that
anymore.
Year.
The year that Alex Smith was a rookie, they played. Oh, there it is. Week 5, Sunday, October 9th. They played the Indianapolis Colts, and that was Peyton Manning, Edgerrin James, Marvin Harrison.
Oh wow!
I remember the game because Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison had a chance to break Steve Young and Jerry Rice's most touchdown passes together, but it was also Alex Smith's first career start.
Wow.
And I was there. And let me tell you, do you want me to? I'm going to give you an intense play-by-play of all the 49ers scoring plays on this.
Do it.
Joe Nedney lines up for a 30-yard field goal. The kick is good. And thank you for joining my play-by-play of the Niners scoring. The Colts won 28-3.
Nedney.
But hey, man, that was back when the Niners MVPs consistently were Joe Nedney and Andy Lee.
Andy Lee. Why did we
Andy,
let him go?
Andy Lee's still. Hey, well, I like Mitch Wishnowsky. Hang on.
Oh, here we go.
I love Mitch Wishnowsky. Frank Gore also played in that game. That was fun. 8 carries for 31 yards. So yeah, I guess my biggest memory is Alex Smith's first career start. I was there in the building. Other than that, like obviously just the Harbaugh years. Seeing him lose his starting job is still something I'm a little, I don't want to say upset about anymore because it's been so long. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to say Alex Smith is better than Colin Kaepernick, but I will die by the fact that I don't think Alex Smith commits 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter in Seattle in that NFC Championship game. I'm just going to say that. Or second half. I don't think it was all in the fourth quarter. But yeah, no. So Alex Smith, all-time 49er great. It sucks because I don't think we really appreciated him as much as we should have when he was actually here. And it's just one of those things that now that he's gone, we remember him a little more fondly, especially with what he's gone through. I mean, we've gone 35 minutes into this podcast and we haven't mentioned the man almost died and lost his leg. And I'm still like uncomfortable watching him play just because of that. And I don't think he needs to really prove anything at this point. But obviously the man has a love for the game of football and he's trying to do what he can out there. So, yeah, it's good to see Alex Smith, and I'm happy that we'll see him at least one more time before he calls it a career.
Yeah, any other week but this week, right? You know, like I think we're all on the same, we're all in the same boat with you. You know, we get scared every time you get hit. We, we feel the same ways and everything as well, too. We're also rooting for you, though. Like any other week, we want you to win the NFC East, buddy. You know, like any other week but this week.
Yeah, and so I guess that really puts away the game preview specific part, I think. We'll make picks here in a minute. I guess now, since we I don't think we give enough time, we're probably about 10 minutes away from questions. So start throwing your questions in if you have any. We'll reach those when we get to it.
For sure.
Injury report, we haven't said anything about it.
I was going to say, go for it.
Out, Tom Compton, he has a concussion. Kevin Givens, he's out. I believe the reason is he's having his girlfriend lady had a child. I don't know.
So he had a kid. He was on hand for it, and part of the COVID protocols is that he can't come back because he's been away
5 days. Yeah, he has 5 days, and I think he came back Wednesday, so not enough time. And then Grasu's out with a knee injury. Now this is where it gets a little skeptical. Doubtful. Yeah. DJ Jones. So now you don't have Givens. You might not have DJ Jones either. So defensive tackle, it's going to be Kinlaw, and we're going to see who else. Contavious Street. There we go. Emmanuel Mosley, he is doubtful with a hamstring. I wouldn't expect to see him, but he should be back next week, I'm assuming.
Hope so.
And then questionable K'Wan Williams with.
He's playing.
He's playing. So questionable.
He's playing.
I wrote down the injury report at whatever time, 1:00 when it came out. He was questionable then. I wouldn't be.
No, if he's questionable, I mean, but that's what I mean. So there is no more probable. Remember, they got rid of that tag. That's so if he's questionable and remember where he's been as far as like where he was, where his rehab and everything. If he's even questionable, it's because he's up this game. They're not going to allow Dante Johnson out there again.
Yes, and then the Washington football team injury report. Mm-hmm. Antonio Gibson out with the toe injury, and that sounds like one they're really skeptical about. Mm-hmm. They're not. Turf toe is so hard, man. Turf toe is so hard to figure out. Morgan Moses, the tackle, he's questionable with a groin injury. Brandon Sheriff, guard. He's questionable. David Sharp, he's a tackle, questionable. Terry McLaren, he's on the injury report with an ankle injury. However, he was limited on Wednesday, full practice Thursday, and full practice today. He is good to go. And then Ryan Anderson, defensive end, knee injury. He is questionable. And I think he got hurt yesterday because he was a full participant the past 2 days and limited today. So there's the the injury report for the Washington football team. And I guess technically the Niners have Deebo Samuel on the injury report. However, he was a full practice today. He will be playing.
He's a go.
So there's your injury report, your last minute injury report, and I'm sure we'll find out the situation with DJ Jones, Emmanuel Mosley, and K'Wan Williams closer to kick off. So this is the Niners' second game in Arizona. I don't know. Is there anything specific you noticed with the field on Monday night? That I don't know. That's just talk, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You want to touch on that?
Nah, we flushed it. We moved on and everything. I think that everybody learned a really good lesson from Monday night about, make sure that you're like looking at the opponent, as clearly as possible. Look at your team, but make sure you look at the opponent a little bit more and then, try to be real with yourself. And that's something I'm telling myself on this podcast. Also, I'm not just telling it to anybody else. I did find one little stat. I went stat digging today on Twitter. I don't know if any of you guys saw, but. I pulled up, I was mentioning about how Washington runs a ton of man, right? So, like I said, Brandon Ayuk gets open, and so does Deebo Samuel, with the underneath routes and things like that. So I wanted to talk about specifically Darby and Fuller, right? Because they're the two outside corners. And Jimmy Moreland is their nickel corner, right? But they ran a ton of man with just who they had in a linebacker stopping everything underneath in the middle of the field, right? So that's a little bit concerning, right? Like right there. So it's so funny how the Steelers have some similarities in their offense to how the 49ers run and how they want to throw. Like Deontay Johnson runs a lot of routes that Deebo Samuel runs. He just runs more vertical routes, and he has a quarterback who actually throws it down the field more, even if he doesn't throw it as much as the average quarterback. Deontay Johnson actually runs those routes in the middle of the field, those quick Texas routes where it's just like a little slant move and it's in there, and things like that. But, Ronald Darby and Kendall Fuller are their two corners. So Ronald Darby, who I think it's primarily he's on the right side, he has taken 74 targets, 41 completions for a 55.4% completion percentage, 591 yards, 1 touchdown, and he's allowed an 86.0 passer rating with 0 interceptions. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting, right? Kendall Fuller has allowed 55 targets, 37 completions for a 67.3% completion percentage, 437 yards, 6 touchdowns, 97.3 rating, but he has 6 interceptions. Normally, you would see the guy who gets more interceptions is the guy who has the more targets. But Kendall Fuller actually has 6 interceptions on almost 20 less targets in his direction. And if I'm not mistaken, Fuller's missed 2 games. So that's the reason that the targets are really off there. So I just thought that stat was interesting, that the guy who's actually allowing a higher percentage, more touchdowns, a higher passer rating, also has more interceptions on less targets. The correlation there is it's a little weird, when it comes to those two. But, for what it's worth, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk should be fine against both of these guys, honestly, at this point. If I watch Brandon Ayuk, do what he could to Tre'Davious White and get open against him, I have 0 concerns that he could do that against Ronald Darby or Kendall Fuller on either side. So, there's going to be there's going to be plays for Nick. They're all there for him, right? It should be there. Guys are open. You can see when you watch the film, and I hope anybody would, you could see the frustration on guys when they're not being thrown to correctly, or they're open and nobody's seeing them. Guys are throwing their hands in the air. And it's not just one guy, it's almost everybody. So Nick Mullins has a chance in this game while there is no pass rush. Those slants kind of negate that because you get it out of the shotgun and you immediately get it out and don't allow the pass rush to get there.
Yeah, so we'll see how Mullins does against that tough secondary. And we've gone this long without even saying Landon Collins.
Is he playing?
He's not on the injury report. I'm assuming so. He's actually. He might be actually out.
Yeah, I thought he was done.
Games, maybe. Oh, he is. He's on the injury reserve. Never mind. Ignore that. So we'll take questions here in 2 minutes. There is a quote I want to talk about that happened that kind of caused some ruffles in 49er Twitter.
Okay.
Quote: if there's some miracle that happens, then sure, there's an opening. But there's 40 free agents, and they'll probably have $30 million or less in cap, and they've got to bring back Trent, who costs over $20 million. They have to pay Fred, who costs $18 million plus a year. So anybody who knows the situation understands that. That is Richard Sherman talking about his impending free agency. And I think a lot of people are taking that as he's gone. Now, I'm going to look at I like to look at my glass half full with the 49ers. The number he cited is $30 million. That's not going to be the Niners cap number, I don't think. Because I don't think D Ford's going to be on this team next year. And if you want to believe everything that's being said, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be on this team next year. So that's a lot of money to come off the books. So I wouldn't take what he says for granted yet. See what the Niners do in the offseason. Just see what they do and see what the cap situation actually is. I don't think this is him closing the books on the 49ers. I think it's just him because you got to remember, he's his own agent. He's his own agent. That's really what it is. So he's trying to drive his price up. He's trying to say what his thing is while also being a player. I don't think the Niners want to lose him. I don't think they see him saying this as a negative. I think they know this is who he is. So do I think that there's a chance that Sherman comes back for 49ers? Yes. I don't think it's very high, but I don't think this is him closing the books on.
Right. I think that honestly with this, it's like, Sherman's saying all the things that, that wouldn't upset me, right? That's all stuff like matter of fact things that he's saying, right? That's not an opinion, really. Those are all real facts, right? But I think that it's a little bit premature to talk about anybody's contract situation at this point until we find out what the cap really is, the solid number. There's numbers that are floated around, things like that. You have to remember who's going to be maneuvering. Not everybody's going to be back on this team. You're not going to have to pay everybody. So it's a little premature, I think. Like, that sounds like GM speak. That sounds like, but I think that that's probably the only way that you can go about this right now. You don't know who's going to be here. You don't know who's not going to be here. So, like, I really think that that's what's important here. So, yes, there's a possibility that Sherman's here, but I think we all kind of prepared ourselves for him going next year. Unfortunately, just, get your bag one more place. Like, I get that you want to be here, and I get that and everything as well, too. But I'm always going to be pro player and pro take, your money when you get a chance to get it.
And for me, I think if he does leave, I think the favorite is going to be wherever Robert Saleh goes.
Yeah.
I think that's a good tie.
Let me take one of these questions, I think, real quick. I got one up here that I thought we saw.
Questions, beautiful.
Yeah, let me just see. So we saw the why should this be a win? Give me a second, guys. I'm trying to navigate this. Let me see. Run game has to be good for the offense. Goodness gracious. Okay. I think I found it. Yep. So do you think Alex Smith has animosity for Harbaugh benching him for cap? If he does, we'd never know. And I would say no. Like, Alex not that type of guy.
Yeah, I really think he's always, I mean, like, you hear about his relationship with Mahomes, kind of knowing he was going to get replaced by Mahomes, still doing what he can. Alex Smith just seems like a dude who wants to help whoever he can when he can. And sure, I'm sure that in 2012, 2013, when it all happened, like, I'm sure he was upset. He lost his job. But in the year 2020, I don't think it's really as much of an issue. And I mean, if you're trying to talk about him having animosity towards the 49ers as a whole because of it, the only 49er that's still there since he's left is Jed York. And I don't think Jed York had much of a decision in that.
Nah.
So if you're talking in terms of like a revenge game type thing, I don't think that's as much big of a deal. Do I think there was animosity? Yes. I think when it first happened, probably. In the year 2020, I don't think there's as much animosity.
Right. Okay. I got one more question from Matt Moses, who was the one who actually sent in the first question. So, the Dak Prescott thing kind of just got thrown out there. So he asked, what's up with the Dak Prescott rumor? So that was something that Marcus Spears. Right. Marcus Spears said on ESPN about, potential landing spot for Dak. Right. And he said, that there's a team, in the Bay that need a quarterback. And, this is a touchy subject on 49ers Twitter. Okay. Yes. And the place that you lean is really the hard part. Like what I say is like, there's such an outcry of people who say Jimmy Garoppolo is definitively better than Dak Prescott. I don't know if this is going to lose viewers or listeners. I am not in that boat. I believe that Dak Prescott is better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and I would love to see him in this offense with these weapons, even with his ankle and everything. He'll still find his mobility as well too. The winner thing is like, it's overblown, a little bit, and you just have to remember that context is everything. Context is everything, and who's around him and what's going on and stuff. So I definitely would love to see Dak Prescott somehow. He's going to be too expensive, but hey, look, a guy could dream, man. And like, if we're just talking about, I think I'm not talking about whether it's possible with the contract, because that's not what I'm talking about. I think that I want to talk to the people who really have that discussion about whether Jimmy's better than him, and I don't think he is.
Yeah, the Dak Prescott rumors definitely came from Marcus Spears, although there's been, I guess you could say it's something that's been there the whole time, just considering the fact that the 49ers are, have a big question mark at quarterback going into next year. And one of the big questions is, are the Cowboys going to bring back Dak? I think they will. I don't think they're not going to. I think if they offer him the franchise tag, things will get a little sticky, and we'll see where we go from there. Mm-hmm. In terms of Dak Prescott as the 49ers quarterback, yes, 10 out of 10 times, yes, I would take Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, when healthy, is a top 10 quarterback in this league. I don't care what anybody says. You know, my
Right.
my personal top 5 is, and nobody asked for this. Nobody, I'm just throwing it out there because I did it earlier this week, and I'm like, man, I'm not going to flex it. My personal top 10 is Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, and Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Dak Prescott is too far away from that group.
Okay. I
think you can break that into 3 different tiers, that top 10 into 3 different tiers, or that top 5. There's tier 1, which is Patrick Mahomes, which is just tier Mahomes. There's tier 2, which I think is Rodgers and Russ. And then tier 3 of that is probably Deshaun and Allen. I think if you get a healthy Dak Prescott with Kyle Shanahan, you are touching tier 2. I don't think it's possible to touch tier 1. Just plain, I don't think that's possible. I think Patrick Mahomes is a freak of nature. He's his own category, and he always will be. Mm-hmm. I think Dak Prescott in the right system can be a top 5 quarterback easily, and I think the 49ers system could be that for him. He's not the most mobile guy, but he is mobile. He can move the pocket. He has a big arm. I think Dak Prescott, I'm going to say it, best case scenario quarterback for the 49ers this offseason. Better than Zach Wilson, better than Matt Stafford, better than Mac Jones, better than anybody else. I think Dak Prescott's the best one. Actually, Archinoy had a better question, or good question too. I want to touch the first one. The question is, do we want him back, and in what capacity in terms of Sherman? I would say, okay, to me, I would want Richard Sherman back, and in the capacity of cornerback number 1. I think the talk of safety is a little premature because I still think Richard Sherman's best value is he is Richard Sherman. And if he can get an interception in a game, that shuts down his side for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
He has that ability too. It's just the name brand. Richard Sherman. If he can get a pick or a pass breakup or near interception, something like that, teams aren't going to throw towards his side. So now all of a sudden you've taken one side of the field away because of what Richard Sherman is. I know he's not Richard Sherman of the Seahawks. I understand that. But I still think he is a cornerback number 1 on this team if he's brought back next year.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be it. It would be, you know, can he move to safety? Can he mentor this? Can he be another coach? Can he be a coach on the field? And I think that's what he offers to this team that's invaluable. And I think that's, you know, leadership means a lot. Like we saw Joe Staley walk, and I think that the leadership in the offensive line room is lacking, you know, and that can, you know, lead to, you know, the same thing with the secondary. So like, I don't mind that idea. It just all comes down to the money. So the second question for Art Leroy, and this one is the really good one because this one's been floated around. Once again, Javi is moving 49ers Twitter with whatever quarterback of the week, you know. Do you have any concerns with Matt Stafford's health longevity given the trade talk rumors? Here's a fun fact about Matt Stafford. He's missed 8 games. 8 over the last few years. 8. Doesn't it sound like that should be like 20, 25, 22 games? He's actually more durable than our guy, and we know he's better. So, yeah, Matt Stafford, you know, I'm not going to talk about the money. I'm talking about get him over here because I want to see him make all the throws to Ayuk, Kittle, Debo with Mostert. This play calling. Good God.
Yeah, you mentioned his longevity. I'm going to list the games started in his career, starting with rookie year. 10, 3, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 8, 12. Yeah, I don't think health is an issue now. I'm more iffy on Stafford than you are, and I don't really have a reason to do so. I don't have a reason to do so. I've just never been big on Matt Stafford. Now, my question is, and I don't know if this is actually how it works. If Robert Saleh goes to the Lions,
does he do one favor, like one last favor? Like
I'm going to say it on the opposite side. Do the Niners do him a favor? Because trading away a franchise quarterback is going to make it tougher on Saleh. And I know that probably isn't how it works, but I'm curious if maybe the Saleh tie will play into their interest in him. I don't know. That's just me floating something. That's not me knowing anything. That's just me kind of thinking out loud of, hey, maybe that's them saying, hey, we could get Zach Wilson. We could be fine with Mac Jones. We could be fine with Trey Lance. Dak Prescott might be available. Maybe we don't need to pressure for Matt Stafford. That's just me kind of thinking out loud.
I mean, look, anything can happen, right? And the back injury, I think, is what scares everybody. Because the back thing is so iffy, right? So many athletes have been robbed of their entire careers with the back thing, right? Like literally the hardest thing for a doctor to diagnose is always the back. They can take like as many things as they want, right? So that's what I think everybody's nervous about. But I don't have those concerns, right? He's only 32. I think that there's this misconception that he's like 35. Quarterbacks play a lot longer in this league. And just because you get Matt Stafford doesn't mean that you're directly tying yourself to him for 3, 5, 7 years. That's not the case. You can still get Matt Stafford and still not in this draft, but maybe what about the next draft? There's another quarterback there that you try and get. Matt Stafford is definitely getting you into exactly the type of game that you want to be in, that you thought you would be in with this roster. And I think that's exactly what they should be looking at, right? Even with the mass exodus of players, right? So many players who are going to be – think about what a franchise quarterback does. Think about what a guy does when he's able to mask those deficiencies with throws and win those games where he comes back and does things out of nowhere. Those are the type of things that lift up those roster the roster deficiencies. And that's, I think, what Matt Stafford offers. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, for me, it's Matt Stafford would add one level to the 49ers offense we definitely been asking for, and the ability to throw the ball deep. That's something Stafford's very good at. So, yeah, it's like Stafford in theory works for me. There's something about him, though. I don't know what and it could just be he's played for the Lions his entire career, and we know what it is with the Lions and their history with franchise, not even franchise players, but franchise-altering players. Right? Like
he's more mobile than Jimmy. Big Golden Nuggets is saying problem. Stafford is not mobile. See, I think this is the one thing I'm going to clear up, and this is how we're going to, we'll end this and we'll go right into the prediction, right? Because we're getting close to it. I think what you guys are misconstruing about mobile is not a running quarterback. You can still be mobile and maneuver in the pocket. That's what I'm talking about mobile. It's not being able to pick it up with your feet. It's being able to avoid the rusher, step up in the pocket, and then air that thing out, just like Stafford did against the Bears. Perfect. That was perfect. That was exactly what you're looking for.
Perfect example of what you're talking about too is Derek Carr. Derek Carr by no sense is mobile, but the dude can move in a pocket. He might be Derek Carr. His best ability is pocket climbing. He can climb that pocket. He is not afraid. I mean, even while I know the play has been talked about a lot, the cover 0 blitz to end the game that lost. Watch him step up in the pocket.
Yeah.
Do you see Jimmy Garoppolo doing that? Do you see Nick Mullins doing that? That's the type of mobile we're looking for. We don't need a guy who can run for 5 yards per carry. We don't need a Kyler. The Niners don't need a Russell Wilson type. They just need a guy who can move the pocket a little bit. That's really all we're looking for. So as we are sitting right now, Jason Aponte, the 49ers, 3-point favorites. I'm going to go 49ers win this game. Yeah. I think Washington covers, though.
What's the spread?
3.
Yes. So no. I have a different take.
Okay. So yeah. So my official prediction, I'll say it again: 49ers win outright. Washington covers the 3.
Okay, I've got it. I've got the 49ers winning this game 23-14. I think the 49ers will do enough with field goals. They'll get into enough spots like that. I think that the 49ers defense is going to come to play, and people are going to say, oh, look at the defense again. But again, it's about matching up. It's all about matchups. This isn't a good matchup for Washington against this defense. The way that they were playing, and I think, I was just on a show with Javi earlier, and he made such a good point, man. The defense has carried this team so much that they're allowed one game. Come on. You can't expect them to just do it every single game. So they're allowed one game, especially when he made the point that we made about sometimes teams just better than you. This isn't one of those matchups. It's not the same thing, especially when you give that Gibson's not going to be there. So I've got a 23-14. I think the 49ers do enough. I'm not certain where the offense is going to come from. And expect the 49ers to come out with a similar game plan that they did like against the Patriots, where Fred Warner was wiping out everything in the middle of the field, just carrying guys into the next zone and things like that. And I expect the same thing because they run so many of those late safety valves and crossers and shallow crosses and those like slants. So everything's right there in front of them, right? Like these guys aren't in any. I mean, McLaurin can get behind them, but they're not really in any danger unless they blow a coverage, which we saw on Monday Night Football. They're not really in any danger of any deep shots like that. So yeah, I mean, I struggle to see where the offense is going to come from, and this feels eerily like the Redskins game in terms of you're not really worried about them throwing the ball on you, and you're just trying to figure out where the offense comes from.
Yep, and then the over-under is sitting at 43.5. I'm going to take the under. 43.5 feels like a lot.
Yeah.
So I guess that's going to be it.
Yep.
Give us a follow on Twitter at Pasquini Andrew, at Jason Aponte 2103. Also give the Sprint Right podcast a follow. I believe it's at Sprint Right Pod. YouTube subscribe, Spotify, Apple Podcast link. I'm going to post that when the podcast goes up. And Jason, I'm going to throw a wrinkle into it. You ready?
Ready.
We usually sign off with our Go 49ers, but I'm going to throw a little wrinkle. Are you ready for this?
I am.
Go Giants, go Buccaneers, and go Pack, go alongside go 49ers.
I love it. Yep, it is playoff time. There's at least a playoff there for it. Let's do it.